So we're looking at this, at the first half of Ecclesiastes, which is a remarkable document. Of course, it comes from the Bible, just as the Ten Commandments do, and it comes from it's a particular book of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, the part of the Bible that was written by and for the Hebrew people before Christianity, before there was a hint of anything like that. This is not really that important in terms of what we're doing, but you should just be aware as an educated person that the Bible is not particularly Christian or exclusively Christian, that the Old Testament is not a Christian document. Those are documents that have been adopted by Christians, but they were originally produced and still are revered by the Jewish people. So we're looking at the book of Ecclesiastes, which is part of the Old Testament, which has so many different kinds of documents and was assembled over so long a period. It's a part of the Old Testament that is associated, sometimes called the wisdom books, Wisdom of Solomon, Job, Proverbs. These particular parts of the Bible, which seem to be specifically and self-consciously directed towards ethical instruction, as opposed to books like Genesis or Exodus or the histories and things like that. And it is a remarkable text, just in terms of the worldview that it has. I think that any believing person in the Judeo-Christian tradition is challenged by Ecclesiastes because it is so different. Its view on life is so different from anything that we get, I think, any other source, biblical source that I know. And I think that the most characteristic idea is this idea of vanity, which is repeated over and over again in the book. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, and the preacher is the writer. Ecclesiastes means churchman, I believe, in Greek. So the preacher is the writer who's taken himself to be a wise man, and I think traditionally it's supposed to be Solomon, the son of David, but who knows if that's probably not. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. And I'm familiar with the term vanity, or the word vanity, and the associated word vain. But I looked it up in a good dictionary, as I do when I come across words that I think are really important, and my grasp on them perhaps is a little vague. We use that word vanity in so many ways, and the word vain in so many ways. But the root meaning is emptiness, and in some translations, some more modern translations, this is the King James Version from the 1600s, but more modern translations would say that everything is empty or everything is meaningless. And that certainly maybe helps us. The preacher is saying that everything is empty, everything is emptiness, everything is in vain, which is quite a startling view, if it is the fundamental view, and I believe it is, of Ecclesiastes, to come from a religious document, or what seems to be a religious document, to say that life is meaningless, life is vain, that the human condition is empty and futile, that everything we do is in vain, is quite a startling thing to get from a source that we presume is a sort of pious religious source. But that's what it says, and it says it over and over again. And we do get immediately a sense of, why the preacher says this. This fantastic line here: one generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. That is, I've heard that quoted, that beautiful quote, in a positive way, but that would be to misuse it. It's not a positive thing at all. It paints this picture of an individual human life as being kind of futile because, as he goes on to say, we live in a world where there's nothing new under the sun, and what is only what already has been, and what will be is what has been, and there's nothing new, and there's no point to it, and the wind goes around, and the waters drain into the sea, and it all seems to have no ultimate meaning or purpose, and that is the situation in which human beings live their lives. It's quite a pessimistic view of things, and there are parts of Ecclesiastes in these first 6 chapters which are even more pessimistic. I'll just refer to you. Hold on. What he says about death is pretty amazing. This is chapter 3, verse 18. I said in mine heart concerning the estate of the sons of men. That is, the estate of the sons of men would be the state of humanity, the condition of human beings. That God might manifest them, and that they might see that they themselves are beasts. For that which befalleth the sons of men befalleth beasts. Even one thing befalleth them. As the one dieth, so dieth the other. Yea, they all have one breath. So that a man hath no preeminence above a beast, for all is vanity. All go unto one place, all are of the dust, and all turn to dust again. Really quite startling, and it's not something you would expect to find in a religious text like the Bible, book of the Bible. That human beings are essentially animals, and that they have no real advantage over the animals. That they themselves are animals, they die like animals, and there's no hint here, for instance, of something like an afterlife. That human beings and animals, of course, are different. But in the sense that all animals are different from each other. Human beings are unique, but there's nothing unique about being unique. They're just a different sort of animal. All animals are unique. So human beings shouldn't get puffed up. They shouldn't think that somehow they have anything over the animals. I mean, let's look at the big picture. You come from the dust, you live your vain little life in your short time, and then you die and you return to the dust, and that's it. Seems to be what this. So a very pessimistic view of human life, and almost, not almost, it is saying that life is vain, that the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of pleasure. He says, I tried knowledge, and I saw that knowledge was vain. I tried pleasure and folly, drunkenness, and I found that was vain. And he basically says, if I can, I probably won't be able to find the exact part, but he does say that it's just, you just have to enjoy you have to enjoy your work, is what he says. That there's, let's see if I can find it. This is so good. Yeah. This is chapter 2, verse 24. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. That is, what do you have? You have the simple pleasures of life, like eating and drinking. You have taking satisfaction in your work, and that's about it, he says. That's about all you can hope for in life, which itself is a kind of an ethical, it is, I would say, to a certain degree, advice on how to live your life. Listen, you're surrounded by emptiness. Something almost existential about it. You're surrounded by emptiness. You can't understand God. You can't understand nature. Anything that you do will just be a repetition of what has already been done, because there's nothing new under the sun. So what can you hope for? You can hope for some good times. You can hope for a good meal, and you can hope to find satisfaction in your work, which is an interesting thing also to say. That's really kind of how you have to live your life, looking for the small pleasures and taking an interest in your activity, your work activity, and taking pleasure in finding satisfaction in that work. So I think that's the big picture that Ecclesiastes paints. But it's also important to realize, or to see what is just there, is that there is, along with this sort of pessimistic picture, this all is vanity theme, and also some pretty grim ideas about the possibilities of justice and fairness on earth. When, here in the beginning of chapter 4, verse 1, I considered all the oppressions that are done under the sun. Where he says that, in the place of justice there is iniquity, and in the place of mercy there is cruelty, things like that. So despite all this pessimistic thinking about the conditions of human life, it's quite clear that Ecclesiastes thinks that it's important to live ethically, and much of Ecclesiastes, or at least a significant part of it, is ethical advice. That is, despite the apparent meaninglessness of human life, it's still important to live ethically. It's still important to be ethical. And maybe I'll do one more video in which we look at some of the specific ethical advice that's given here in chapter 5.